What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. This is TWA Motorsports, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of work. I say a little bit, it's actually going to be quite a bit of work on the GMC Sierra, the Stepside, the daily driver for my son now. What did we get? Well, we needed a hitch. This thing did not have a hitch, and so I found one at a local pick and pull, and it needs to be cleaned up. It's actually in really good shape. Most of these things are just a rusty mess. This one has obviously had some paint sprayed on it at some point. Otherwise it would have a little surface rust, but we're gonna clean that up. I'm gonna pull the bumper off. We're gonna clean the bumper up quite a bit, and we're gonna coat the back side of it. I don't know if you guys caught that in the video when I put my dad's truck back together, but he actually coated the back side of his bumper with some POR 15. We're gonna do that. I'm gonna clean the plastics. I'm going to treat the plastics. Probably gonna replace the bulbs in the lights. I'm going to, while we have the bumper off, paint correct the area that I cannot reach while the bumper's on. That way it's like done, and you know, I don't have to go back and do it. And aside from that, really just some cleaning. And I'll show you guys kind of how the process works of getting a hitch on. I actually was able to not only get the hitch, what's really nice about this, getting it from like a salvage yard, is I got all the bolts as well. So we're gonna be doing a lot of cleaning, a lot of scrubbing, and ultimately trying to make the back section here look a little nicer, and at the same time adding a hitch. So let's get started. I think, guys, in order to get the bumper out of one of these things, you do have to lift the bed up a little bit. I think we'll be able to just, like in the last video when I was installing some wiring and doing a few things. Oh, I lowered this side to kind of help compensate for it being higher. I think we're gonna have to loosen the back bed bolts. The back two, I believe, if we just do both sides, I think that's enough to sneak the bumper out, but we'll just have to give it a shot. Either way, I'm gonna show you guys what we need to remove, so let's get started. So where I think I'm actually gonna start here is, and I won't show you guys this, I just kinda wanna show you the process, but I'm gonna clean these bolts up. These are the bolts that I got out of this at the salvage yard. So what I'm using here is my wire wheel. And so I generally take this outside. That's why it's by the door, just so I don't throw a bunch of junk on, like, you know, I've got an open motor right there, although it's gonna get rebuilt. But just cleaning up the outsides of these and the threads, it only, you know, it makes it thread in easier. And I'm gonna coat, when I'm coating the backside of the bumper, I'm also gonna coat these. So I'm gonna knock these out real quick while I've still got some daylight, and then we'll crawl under that truck and get some stuff loose. Now, to get one of these bumpers off these trucks, you've got a couple things you need to loosen up. So there's two 18s right there. You can see them top and bottom. And then aside from that, there's a 15, I wanna say there's a 15 millimeter under here too, guys. Yeah, up there at the very top, you can see it. It actually comes through on part of this bracket right here. So the hanger or the shackle. And then aside from that, there's no bolt. Normally, if you have a hitch, there'd be a bolt right here, but we don't have that, so we don't have to worry about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take just those three out, and the bumper will actually be loose. Now, in order to get it out, we're gonna have to get the 18 that's right above there. You can see that's holding the bed right there. And then, like I said, I think we can get away with just the two. So that hole right there, right above that is another 18. So we're gonna get those two loosened up at the same time we do these, and then hopefully we can slide the bumper out. But you can see how crusty the bumper is, and that's why I wanna paint on the back side of it. Now that we have the bed bolts out, all those bumper bolts out, we need to unhook our lights. You can see I've got one undone there, but I'm gonna unhook, instead of unhooking everything here, I'm gonna actually unhook it right here. You can see there's a clip, and I'm gonna go trace that the whole way. The other thing is, obviously we now have a backup camera. I'm gonna take my plate off, get the camera where it's like down below here, so we don't have to worry about pulling any wiring off with this. Once I got all that unhooked, you can see I've got a block of wood here, and I've just lifted it enough so we can clear these right here. You can see what I'm talking about? Without, and I've only got the back two bed bolts out. I only took those two out, so we're able to definitely do it. So I'm gonna yank this thing out of the way. I'm gonna have to pull this down, I guess, my jack handle, but we'll be able to get the bumper free. Now you can see where I lifted here. I'm just gonna go ahead and set it back down. Yeah, got this thing off. So now, I was gonna clean up those bolts. I'll show you guys the other bolts that I cleaned up. I didn't get real crazy because with what I'm going to be using, which is POR 15, it really kind of needs some rust to stick. So mainly what I cleaned out on the bolts over there are the threads, and then I kind of got the loose stuff off. So now that we've got this done, I'm going to see if I can set maybe something up where I could set my chair and kind of clean on this, and then we'll move on to how I'm going to paint it and kind of what I'm going to be doing here. Here's how we're going to start. I'm going to start on the front, so basically the chrome section. And if you guys notice, there's some kind of staining down here, and a lot of times this is pretty common. These bumpers start to rust really from the inside out. And in order to get it, somewhat cleaned up, now it's really dusty right now. It doesn't give you guys a real good idea of what's going on here, but you can see that it cleans up pretty good. But what I'm going to do is there's some kind of surface rust, especially right here in this corner. I'm going to be using some really fine, some 4-aught 4000 is kind of how it's actually labeled, steel wool. I'm using some glass cleaner, some steel wool, and I'm just going to go over the bar side of the bumper. So everything on the front side that it's kind of got some maybe light surface rust down here on the sides, or on the sides and down here on the very bottom. That's all I'm going to address. The top side probably doesn't even need it. It just needs a good cleanup. It's just dusty. But down here on the bottom, we definitely need to scrub on a little bit. So I'm gonna leave like the pads and stuff later on until once we're all finished. But for now, let's get this knocked out. I'm trying not to put any time lapse in if I don't have to, guys, because it's gonna be really hard to see what I'm doing here. So if it's something that I feel like that you can see on a time lapse, I'll try to put it in. But if not, like this, I'm just gonna do it off camera, and then we'll cut to the next section. You can see how well it's cleaning up. Looks better. I think, like I said, just wiping it down. But a couple other things that I'm going to take loose before I continue cleaning. I'm going to clean all this out. That's nasty. I really don't even need that there, to be honest with you, because it doesn't have a spare tire. But I'm going to take these out, and so if you just kind of pull these over to one side, it's a little easier to reach from the back and unclip these, because I want to get it clean underneath this. Just a good cleanup, guys, made this thing look quite a bit better. But now we need to flip it around, and we need to take care of the back, and that's going to really be the hardest part. I've got a couple brushes. You can see my steel brushes over there. I'm going to try to wipe some of it down, but we're going to leave a majority of the crusty, rusty stuff. Let's flip it over and look at it. Yeah, take a look at this. Now, what are we going to do here? Because look, POR 15 that I'm going to be using likes to stick to rust. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to paint it along this ledge, kind of where it cuts in. But before we do that, we need to get some of the big chunky stuff off there. So like this scaly stuff, like that. I'm not planning on taking the brackets off. What I am planning on doing is I'm going to go over it all like this. And normally, guys, I would use a drill, but because there's areas in here like we couldn't get a drill on. Look at that chrome just peeling off on the back. So because there's areas where I can't get the drill, I'm just going to use this little brush. And we're just going to kind of work over this, getting all the big stuff off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my vacuum over here, vacuum all this junk out. That way we're not getting it wet or anything. I don't really want to get it wet. There's no sense in it. And then we're going to grab the POR 15 and a brush and quite a bit of patience, and we're going to start on this. And that I may time lapse because I like to see painted stuff like that. We'll see if I can get you guys a good angle on that. But let me see if we can brush this down and get all this scaly stuff off. After flipping it around a couple times and getting the scaly stuff knocked down, I told you guys I wasn't going to wipe it down with anything. I actually am. I'm going to wipe it down with some alcohol, just because there is some dirt on it, and I think that would help as far as adhesion goes. So I'm going to wipe it down real quick, and then we'll start the painting process. Let's talk about the downs to POR 15. It comes off of nothing. It just has to wear off. So if you get it on your skin, guys, good luck. Anyway, you can see I've got my bolts stuck in a piece of cardboard. And then you also may notice that my POR 15 is in a different container than what it comes in. And that is because, guys, if you've ever used this stuff before, you know what I'm talking about, but if you get any on the lid, you are not getting it back apart. No ifs, ands, or buts, it's not coming back apart. That stuff is solid. So I'm just gonna, I'm using the world's crappiest brush. I used to use a foam brush, but it seems like it drags more. And so I'm gonna go over these bolts, and then once I get the bolts covered, then we'll start on the bumper. Here's my hope. I wanna do this all in one setting. And when I say that, you're supposed to let POR 15 dry for about, I think it's about 4 hours, maybe. I don't know, it's basically based on how tacky it is when you go back over it. Well, this is gonna take me quite a while. So, and you can see that, like I said earlier, I left some of the rust on here because it helps it adhere. But I'd like to, once I get finished, so I'm gonna set these aside once I'm done with them, but once I get finished with the bolts and start on the bumper, it's kind of like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. Once I get to one end, we start over on the other, is what I'm hoping. So we'll just kind of see how it goes. I may be back and forth side to side, and I don't know how much of the time lapse I'll show you guys, but if I run out of battery, it's because it's gonna take me, I'd say it's gonna take me at least an hour to get one coat on it. Just depends on the brush, and we're not looking for show quality here. This is a daily driver, but at the same time, we wanna protect it. Maybe keep that bumper from rusting out. The Stepside bumpers, guys, are crazy expensive. My cost through GM, because you could still get them, is like 500 bucks. And I've never found, like, the aftermarket ones, just, I don't know. My dad just ordered one for his truck and ended up going back to the original. He just didn't like the way it fit or the finish. So got those covered in one coat. Let's start on this bumper. I think I may have to move the camera around a bit, but we're gonna start here on the bottom. I've already got some on the plastic. Luckily it's on the bottom. I'm gonna go over the bottom section right here where this rivet is. I'll try to make it as pretty as possible, but it doesn't necessarily like to stick to chrome. But if there's rust on that chrome, it should stick okay. Yeah, it's dragging right off the chrome. Maybe on the second coat it'll be better. Definitely sticks to this stuff a lot better. Okay, let's start this time lapse. Remember when I said I'm going to start at one end, go to the other, and then start over? Yeah, not happening. It's incredibly hard to paint in these areas, and you can see, guys, back there where I just can't get back there with the brush. And so I think this one coat, it covered really well, so I'm going to leave it. I'm probably going to coat the bolts twice, but as far as the backside of the bumper, believe me, that looks way better than what it did, and I think it'll really help protect it down the road. So now that we've got that complete, I'm not going to show you guys. I'm going to go over the bolts one more time, and then I'm going to move to the hitch, because the hitch, while it has been painted on, I want to there's a couple bends on it I want to fix, and I'll show you guys that here in just a second. Now, it's virtually impossible to find one of these things used that's, you know, perfect. And so the only issue that this one had, one reason I really like this one, you know, there's probably 10 of them out at the salvage yard, but this one had some paint on it, and these things get really crusty, and somebody has obviously painted this one in the past. The only issue though is this is bent right here, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but this is bent here. So got my metal adjusting tools here. We're gonna see if we can just bend this back, and it may be harder than what I think. Yeah, that's pretty stiff. I may have to actually I'd have to have it on the truck in order to do this, but we'll give it a shot. And we got a little bit there. So we'll just kind of work our way around, see if we can get it kind of bent back in place. I'm sure when they lifted it up, the place that I went is a pick and pull, and they basically take the wheels and tires and weld them together, and it's set up high. So I'm sure when they lifted it up, they pressed against this. I may grab a hammer too and try to pull out some of this. But obviously I want to do this before. I'm going to spray it again with some Reinstalling. That is tough. I was able to turn this and get it out. It looks like it's in decent shape. It's got one piece of plastic missing on the side, but now that I've got it out of there, I can hopefully straighten this out a little bit. I don't have any hammers that a guy would use to work metal. So we just got to use what we got. It's definitely straightening out though. So we'll try to get it a little flatter, and then I think I'm gonna have to do the same thing. I'm gonna have to use a bigger hammer, like a sledge, to flatten this section out. Once we get that done, then we'll try to start scuffing it up. Got it all sanded down now. I'm gonna wipe it down with some alcohol and just, you know, get all the dust and dirt that I made wiping it down. You don't have to get real aggressive with this, guys. It's under the car. We're gonna lay some cheapy Rust-Oleum on there. I really think it'll look good, and especially, you know, I spent more time on the parts you could see, which are that bar and then the actual hitch itself. So majority of it will be tucked up under, and I painted this on the top before. You can notice I didn't hit that, but guys, it doesn't stick. I'll coat it, and it'll kind of sandwich in between the frame and there. But anyway, I'm gonna get that wiped down, hung up, and ready to paint outside. I gotta wait for the temperature to warm up. But then in the meantime, we're gonna grab our paint correction stuff, and I think I'm just gonna go from the body line down, because I can't get to these areas. You can see the dirt. If you guys can see that dirt right there, it's probably been there for years, because you just can't get around the bumper when it's on. So we're gonna fix that, clean that up. So that's what's next. To start this process, I'm just gonna get the big stuff off with some glass cleaner. Normally, guys, you'd want to wash it, but look, I don't have that ability right now. I'm not going to take it out and wash it. So we're just going to clean the big stuff off before I, look at that, before I grab the clay bar this section, because chances are there's probably some tar here. It actually feels pretty smooth though, which is good. If you have a bunch of tar, you're going to want to obviously get some tar remover and clean it off beforehand, but it feels pretty good. We'll go over it a couple times, and then I'm going to go grab my clay bar and we'll clay this area. It shouldn't take long. These beds, they generally don't hold a lot. I don't know if it's because they're like a semi-plastic or what, but it just seems like stuff doesn't stick to them quite like it does metal. I don't know why. Maybe because it, you know, it maybe changes shape in the sun and stuff falls off. I don't know. But either way, let's go grab the clay bar and we'll get this area clayed. All right, I'm just using water like I generally do. We got some older clay. There's no sense in using good, nice new clay, in my opinion, in what we're doing. You can, it's just gonna get even dirtier than. Ooh, there's a chunk right there. Your clay will take some tar off, but if you've got a lot, you really need to take the tar off first. Yeah, that's tar for sure, you can see it. And what I'm probably gonna do is I'm gonna just show you guys one side here, but I'm probably gonna go back and forth. Like, I'll get this side clayed, I'll clay the other side so I can just completely put my clay bar up. And I may go over it 1 or 2 times here. Until it feels smooth. And it's a good idea to knead your clay between passes. At least that's what I've always been taught. There's several pieces down here at the bottom. It gets smoother as we go up top, which makes sense. I mean, this is right behind the rear tire, and you know, all those burnouts we do. One thing I will tell you guys about clay, if you drop it, don't pick it up. If you do pick it up to throw it away. Because all the stuff on the floor, even though I've swept this floor several times, there's still little pieces of gravel, and we don't want to be putting that into the paint. It just causes us more work. I went back and forth whether I should use my big one or my little buffer, and ultimately I decided we're just going to use the small one. It takes a little longer, but I have a little more control in these, you know, curvy areas. So what we're starting with is some M100 microfiber pad. We're gonna kind of smear it around. And I'm probably, guys, gonna focus like down to there. And then once I get all the way around, then I'll move down to the bottom on like my creeper. Isn't going to take much. These beds clean up really well. It looks way better. It's insane how much easier. Like I said, I don't know if it's how the paint sticks to them or what, but it cleans up better. It buffs better. I mean, it just does better all the way around. So I'm gonna probably make 2 passes on each one, and then we'll, like I said, I'll get down on my creeper so I can get underneath. I'm not gonna spend a ton of time under there because there's a lot of rock chips, and honestly, guys, buffing paint around rock chips, all you're doing is kind of stacking up the compound in those chips. So I'm not really going to concern myself with that. The main area was just here anyway. I just figured since we were doing it, we might as well go all the way down the body line. Definitely tell a difference there. I don't know if you guys can see that mar right there, but I had another one down here, and the impatient side of me wants to try. So I tried that area and I was able to get it out. So I think a lot of these imperfections will come out. I think that's all I'm going to do on this. I mean, I'm going to go over it again with the M205 to kind of clean up any haziness that the M105 would have caused, or the M100 would have caused, but I won't show you guys that. You've seen me do that multiple times. Also, I did go ahead and get on the bottom side there off camera. So I'm going to do the other side, and then we're going to put something on this, but I think at that point, we'll be ready to, and I'll show you the results afterwards, but we'll be ready to try to get the bumper back into place at least. I still don't have the hitch painted, but the bumper needs to go on first anyway. And so we can put that in and have it in place and then just put the hitch underneath. It has to go in second, but I've still got to paint it. Before we put the bumper back on here, I want to use some of this trim cleaner. It's like wax and grease remover from Chemical Guys. And kind of what it does is it takes off any like wax or anything that could have got in this over time. And I want to get these areas here, and then I'm going to flip it up on its end. Because I want to, you know, I want the bumper to look nice and clean, and this stuff seems to work really, really well. So I'm going to do the other side, then we'll flip it over and do the rest. This stuff's really kind of a prep before we use their like gel to treat it. But this does really good for those, I don't know if you guys have had those areas where, you know, if you're paint correcting something or you're waxing something or some previous owner waxed something, it'll have that chunk, like those chunks of white build up. This does a great job at getting that junk out. And I'll list all the stuff, guys, like always, that I'm using down in the description, but I wanted to do this because I didn't want to get it on the areas we just fixed the paint on. Because, I mean, ultimately, it probably wouldn't hurt it. I mean, obviously, I'm getting overspray on the areas we painted last night, or I painted last night. Look how much better that trim looks with just cleaning it with this wax and grease remover. So we're going to go ahead and do this entire bumper. Get it all cleaned up, and then I'm going to grab probably the trim gel and show you guys that process. That I will probably use on a microfiber, because I mean I don't necessarily want it on the chrome, even though we can wipe it off if it gets on there. You can even see, you know, in the areas where it's dried, how much better it looks. Now, before we go on to the next step, as far as putting some treatment on that, I want to go ahead and put the bumper in place. So I've got it lifted up with the jack. Like I said, guys, this is not the safest way, but it does work. So we're going to see if we can get the bumper back in place. And I want to leave it kind of a little ways out, so we can kind of get around with the trim and stuff. So we gotta get it up in here. Got one side in. There we go. Once we get that in place, we can go ahead and set the jack down. So I had a spot that leaked across. That's one thing you might check while you're painting the back side of the bumper, that nothing leaks onto the front, because I had a spot on the other side. I don't know if you guys noticed that in one of the clips, but wow, cleaning that off sucked. So this is tire and trim gel from Chemical Guys, and I've been pretty impressed with it in the past. Especially, you know, I don't generally put a bunch of Armor All or any kind of protectant on my tires, but this stuff is like a gel, And I'm trying not to get it on the paint. That's why I'm using this. You could get like an applicator pad if you wanted to, but I also left the bumper out just a hair so I could get around to this front side without trying to touch the paint. And I may get on my creeper and slide under to get the rest of it, but you can see how much it darkens things up. And I'm not gonna really try to get it on the chrome, but chances are, guys, you're gonna get it on the chrome. We can wipe it off once we're finished. An applicator would be nice. We're gonna dress this entire thing, and generally I don't wipe it off. It kind of just soaks in. I may give it a final wipe after it sets for a little bit, but I mean, you can see how much it darkens that up, and it's got some UV protectant in it, so it generally lasts. You know, most of your products that you put on have a lot of silicone in them, and they look good when you put it on, but then, you know, a couple days later, they look like crap again. So let's get this entire thing coated. I used this on a wiper cowl that I did a while back on my crew cab. You guys remember that video? This is the same stuff that I used on it. So let's get this thing coated. And then in the meantime, I'll probably, once I get the coating on it, I may start again, do another coat, and I'll go ahead and put the bumper bolts back in, get this thing set back where it needs to go. I've got the bumper mounted back in place with all the mounting bolts. Just trying to get my license plate back in place with the camera and the cord, you know, somewhat negotiated back here. I don't love the way it kind of smashes the cord, but like I said, when I installed this, it's kind of a cheaper version of backup cameras. It's not like the most expensive. I want to say it was 30 bucks. So it works. But anyway, I took these guys and I cleaned them up. You can see they're slick. And then I put some of my that dressing on it. Same thing I used on the bumper trim. But these are actually in good shape, so I'm going to continue to use them. That is assuming they will. Okay, snap back in and stay is what I was going to say. I'm also going to see if I can round up some LED lights for that. You'll see me wipe this several times. I'm just trying to get the excess off. Got a little sloppy when I was putting that on. Like I said, if you had an applicator, it would be a little easier, but for the most part using Windex on the bumper or glass cleaner. It's definitely looking a lot better. I still need to hook up the lights. Let me see if I can find some 194s. That's all those bulbs are. I think I've got some that'll fit in there. So if I do, we'll do that. And then at that point, guys, we'll be ready. I've got one coat of paint on the hitch. We'll be ready to get it into place. Found some bulbs that I had. One was already burnt out anyway. See if we can get the old ones out. My hands are still pretty slick from using that trim cleaner. Or that. There we go. Looks pretty good. See if we can open the bumper here. We have to get underneath. I'm gonna try that. But the other one is burned out, as you guys can see. I like to plug these in and test them. That's generally why I leave the lights on, so see they're polarity specific. They fit nice though, and they look way better than that dull halogen. At this point, this thing's been drying overnight. It's all painted. Like I said, guys, just used some Rust-Oleum. It doesn't look perfect, but it looks way better than what it did. And so I'm working by myself here. And in order, you can put these in by yourself, especially when you got something that's lowered like this. It makes life a little easier. But here's how I like to start. There's a series of 8 bolts that hold this thing in. There's 2 that bolt right here under the bumper, and then there's 2 that normally you would have to remove before you took the bumper out. And those are the ones that do not have a nut on the top of them. So the longer ones here, these guys here, go on the inner side, and then the nut goes on the top of them. So you'll need a 21 millimeter for those. And then these smaller ones are the ones that we're going to start with because they don't require us putting a nut on them. They thread directly into the frame here, and then under the bumper. So we're going to start with those because I'm working by myself. So normally I can balance it on my, like on my leg while I'm rolling under there. So I'll try to show you guys that as I'm doing it. You can see that I've got it started. It is kind of cumbersome, but once we get that accomplished, then we could go ahead. I like to leave them loose, and so our other 21 millimeters, let me see if I can switch hands and do this, come from the top. So you'll put them in right here like this. And you really kind of need to leave it loose. I've just got them like loosely threaded in. Like that. And then we'll put our nut on them and tighten them up, and we'll go ahead and tighten all of them up. We've got everything snugged up on the bottom. I went ahead and cleaned this off camera. So here's the downside, guys. We're probably going to jack up the paint a little, putting this into place. I was testing it off camera. It goes in a certain way, I think. There we go, like that. And then it twists. So we're definitely gonna jack the paint up a little bit. Oh, I go too far. Oh man, there it is. Yeah, we marred the paint up just a little bit putting it in, but it is in there. So now this truck has, all these trucks are pre-wired for this, at least they should be. And this one has had a hitch in the past. You can see the remnants of it before, and you can also see the plug. And so all I have to do is just plug the plug that's looped around under there into the back of that, and I think we're finished. I'm gonna wipe the bumpers down just one more time with some Windex to kind of shine those up a little bit, but then we'll step back and take a look. Now, one of the other things that I was kind of excited about with putting this on, obviously it's pretty heavy, I wanted to see if we got any more additional drops. So I've got the original measurements from when we did kind of the level out where we put a different size shackle in one side than the other. And so I'm curious to see, with adding the weight of this on the very back of the vehicle. Now, we don't have the tailgate on yet, but adding this, how much did we drop the truck by putting this on? I just noticed that I completely forgot to get measurements for you guys. And of course, my son had to take the truck. You got to see what it looked like. I will tell you guys, I did get it in here for a second. He was on his way out and got some measurements on it. And it actually came down a little less than 1/4 of an inch. So like somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch, just putting that much weight on the back. So it did make it a little closer to that level point. So we still got the tailgate to put on it, of course. Still waiting on that from paint. Guys, I'm not rushing my painter. I told him, just whenever you get the hood and the tailgate, let me know, I'll come pick it up. But until then, you know, I really want to know how much that tailgate's going to drop at putting that weight on the rear end. Then we can figure out if we want to adjust it anymore. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Like I said, you know, we needed to put that on there in case he does decide to use that as a lawn mowing truck, which I think he's going to. He doesn't have any other option, and we'll talk about that in a later video. But if you guys did enjoy this video, please, like always, smash that thumbs up button. Guys, if you are not subscribed, go down there, hit the subscribe, ring the bell icon, and stay tuned to see what we work on next.